Public static void main. Public static void main is the first function that will be called when your application runs. Public static void main.
Public static void main.
Well done. I'm glad you're awake today. Okay, so, sorry I'm late. It's like 2 minutes. You'll forgive me. Okay, what is a class? Someone raise your hand, don't just yell it out. Someone tell me what a class is. What is a class? No. Someone tell me what a class is. Ooh, someone in the back. Yes, please. It's a template. For what? To create an object. Perfect. Okay, so a class contains functions, for example, right? That then when you use that class to construct an object, that object will then have these functions inside, right? Perfect. It says static here, right? What is the difference between functions that have the word static next to them and ones that do not? First of all, wait. Do you guys know what static means in English? Like the word static. There's like the opposite of it is, by the way, is dynamic. Static, dynamic. Those are the opposite words. What does it mean when we say something is static?
It's not changing.
Yeah, exactly. It's fixed. It doesn't change, right? It's always kind of there. Well, if you think about it, right? Static functions are always there. They're on the class. You can use them anytime you want. The non-static functions, the functions that are not static, you can't just use them. You first have to make an object, and then that object will have that function. But if you don't make an object before then, that function basically doesn't exist. It's just in this nebulous template, as you mentioned, and you can't actually use it until you've actually created an object. Նույնը հայերն ասում։ Class-ը հասկացանք, չէ՞, template-ը, որով կարելի է ստեղծել օբյեկտներ, հասկացանք։ Եթե այդ class-ի մեջ կան ֆունկցիաներ, երբ որ ստեղծում ենք այդ օբյեկտը, այդ օբյեկտը ունենում է այդ ֆունկցիաները իր մեջ։ Այդ պարզ է, չէ՞։ Static ֆունկցիաները դες չեն աշխատում։ Static ֆունկցիաները կապված են հենց class-ին։ Ինչի են static, որտեղ իրանք միշտ կան։ Պետք չի new եսի ինչ անեն, որպեսզի նոր object ստեղծեն, որպեսզի նոր այդ object-ի մեջի ֆունկցիան օգտագործեն։ Միանգամից կարող եք այդ class անունը ասեք, get ու այդ ֆունկցիայի անունը, ու ֆունկցիան արդեն կա, կարող եք օգտագործել։ It's static now. So, static functions are attached to the classes, non-static functions are attached to the objects that are constructed. Okay. Furthermore, in Java we have types. If you wanted to make a type for an integer, what would you use? Int, right? Int. Okay, good. What if you wanted a number that has decimals? Double is typically something you would use. Exactly. We learned about string, right? But one thing you may have noticed though is that a string. So if you wanted to make an int, right? It would be lowercase int, the name of the variable, Zubar, and then you could assign it a value, right? By the way, you can also, and you can do this in JavaScript as well, when you create your variable later, you can give it a value. Right? So you don't have to give it immediately. Very often you do. So this is okay, right? Because, however, if I wanted to make it a constant, now this is an error. Why is this an error?
We can't change it.
Because we can't change the value, and here I'm attempting to modify it. Correct. Good. So, int, as you noticed, is lowercase. If I wanted to make a Boolean value, what would I write? Boolean. Exactly. Boolean, and then is awesome. True, of course. And then if I wanted to make, you mentioned double. So double precision, I don't know, let's call this. What would be double? Distance. Distance is, let's say, 4.5 kilometers, let's say, right? Okay. What's another primitive type? We talked about characters, right? So a character literally just has one letter in it, right? So we do char, one char is, and then we use single quotes to specify single characters. Good. I can also make a string. Name is Joe. So something that you may have noticed in this pattern, lowercase, lowercase, lowercase, lowercase, different, isn't it? The reason why it's different is because the lowercase values are known as primitive types. Primitives, they're like the low-level types, right? Numbers, a single character, Boolean, these are our primitive types. You can also create additional types. If you think about it, a class is a type. This is how you create new types, is by having classes. And one thing you may have noticed is that classes begin with a capital letter. Yes? Have you noticed that? So this is actually a convention in Java. Every time you make a class, it should begin with a capital letter. Okay? So here we have example hello world, which begins with a capital letter. That is itself a type. Let's add to this class. So we added a static method to it, right? Let's add a non-static method to it. Let's add something like, int get number, and have it return an int. Int means it's going to return an integer, and here I'm returning 32. If I tried to return something that was not an integer, like a character, this would give me an error. If I tried to run, wait, why is it not giving me? Oh, because it's going to give me the integer value of that. Wait. Let me return, a decimal. Okay, now this would give me an error. Why? Because it's expecting an integer, and yet I'm returning something that is not an integer, right? So this is not valid. It has to be an int because I say it's an int. Okay, how can I use this get num? Can I just do this? Can I just say the name of the class? No. And then dot get number? Can I do that? Why can't I do that?
It's not a static.
Exactly, it's not static. By the way, here's an error. Let's see what the error says. Cannot make a static reference to a non-static method. Cool? So a static reference means you go directly to the class and you try to call it. But it's not static. I can't do that, right? Okay, so how can I call get number? Exactly, I need to create a new object using this class that will then have this inside. Okay. So let me copy that, and let me do new BOM. Okay, so this will construct a new object. So let's call the variable, A. What is the type for A? It's this class that is the type. So A is of type example hello world. The template is itself the type. So the object that is created is of this kind of type. Now, once I have A, now I can do A.get. Oh, look, I have autocomplete. Listen, compute additional info has encountered problems. Okay, shut up. Get num. Yeah. I want autocomplete. Get number. This guy. That is annoying. Save this. There it does. Okay, good. Okay, now if I run this, I can. Okay, so now I can get number. I want to put that into a variable. What do I do? Huh? Can I do this? Int z. Good. So now z has the result of get number, and now instead of hello world, let me print z. Zoom out a bit. Run. Hello? Run. Run as. I think my Eclipse is hosted. That's why it keeps giving me an error. Okay, so this is the problem with using an IDE. Sometimes it gives you problems. Wait, let me quit. Exit. Yes, you can also use IntelliJ and whatever else you want to use. Good. Let me launch Eclipse again. And okay. If I have, okay, good. So it's back. Let me just run it. Good. So I get a 7 here. You guys see that? Yes? So I created a new instance of this by doing new blah, blah, blah. That returns an object that I put into A. The type of that object is the class. In other words, every time you do new example hello world, you're creating a new object that is that kind of an object. It's an example one hello world object. Let me make this a bit more clear for you. Let me make a new class here. Hang on. Let me call it animal. No, dog. Dog.java. Okay, so here we have dog.java. So what is going to be the class name? Dog. Class dog. Okay. And then what are some functions we want from a dog? Let's have it go woof. So it's going to return a string, bark. Return woof. Okay, so save that. Let's see, what are some other functions? Oh, a dog should have a name, right? Makes sense. So it should have a get name, something like this, which is going to return Joey. There's an error here. Can anyone tell me why? Exactly. I have to say the kind of thing this function needs to return. And what does it need to return? Good. So getName is going to return a string. Anything else we will? Oh, let's add an age. So getAge. So what should be the age of our puppy? I don't know. 1 year old. Oh, it's so cute. Okay, int getAge. Okay. So here we have a dog that whenever you make an object using this template, if you will, this class, it will have the function bark, getName, and getAge. So let's actually use it. In order to use it, I need a static main function. What's the syntax for making one of my favorite functions? Public static void main. Cool. And it takes us an array of strings. We'll talk about arrays in a moment. And it runs. Now, in here, let me create a new dog. And let me put that into a variable called, dog1. What is the type of dog1? What is dog1? It's a dog. You get it? I created a new dog. Let me create another dog. There you go. Now I have two dogs. Now let me do system.out.println dog2.getAge. Save that. If I run this, I get 1 because our puppy is 1 year old. Is this okay so far? Easy, right?
Can you repeat the part where dog, one, dog?
This part? Yeah. Sure. So what is dog? You tell me. What is it? It's a class, exactly. So whenever this syntax, new dog, means construct a new object using that class. Okay, that's what you're saying. So this is saying create a new object that is using the template for dog. Okay, that returns to an object that has all the things inside of dog, right? All the functions and so on. Non-static functions, of course, right? Okay, so if you think about it, whenever you look at the syntax, just forget about programming for a moment. A new dog, what are you making? Just look at the syntax. A new dog, right? Okay, so the object you made is a dog. I mean, it's not an actual physical dog that's running around biting people, but conceptually, in programming, it represents a dog, right? It has the age of the dog, the name of the dog, it knows how to bark, yes? We're trying to model a dog. Therefore, the object you made has that as the type. It is a dog. The object is a dog, conceptually, in our data model, right? So what I've done here is I've simply made two dogs. I did new dog, 2 times, and got 2 variables and assigned the 2 objects in. So now, at this point, I have 2 objects. Both of them have all the things inside of dog. That is to say, all of them have bark, getName, and getAge. For dog2, I simply said getAge, and I'm printing the result. Cool?
What if no one is there? Like,
Wait. Okay, aslashur. Inch? Okay, sorry. Go.
What if we want to change the second dog's name? Or
Very good. We're going to get to that in one moment. Right. Very good. Because now all dogs have the same name and the same, which is stupid, right? Okay. Yes.
What if we want to like print not just like the age, but the whole, like everything that is in the class dog too?
Okay, so good question. So one thing you can do, remember how I said that there is a way to turn everything into a string? Like even if I pass in a number here, like a 2, like a 7, whatever, what Java will do is it will turn this 7 into a string and then put it onto the console. And the stringified version of 7 is the string 7, yes? Okay, that's easy. But how do you stringify something that is not just a number? That's something more complicated, like a dog. What is the string representation of our dog? Well, there's a function called toString. ToString. What do you think it's going to return? Yeah. And then whatever you return from here, so let's say I return hi, right? Whatever this returns, I'll tell you what this stuff is later, okay? So whatever this returns is what it will turn into. So here if I just write dog1, dog1 is not a string, right? It's a dog. It's an object. So what will Java do? Well, what it will do is it will, by default, call the toString function of this guy and get hi. Watch this. If I now run, see, I get hi. I passed in dog1 and I got hi as its stringified version. Միատե հայերեն ասել։ Օբյեկտները կարող են դառնալ string։ Բայց ինչ է նշանակում օբյեկտը դարձնել string, չէ՞։ Օբյեկտը ունի ֆունկցիաներ, ունի հազար ու մի տարբեր ինչ որ data իր մեջ։ Իր string վարիանտը որն է, ոնց իմանա։ Գոյություն ունի toString ֆունկցիա, որը Java-ն գիտի այդ ֆունկցիայի մասին։ Բոլոր կլասերը by default ունեն այդ ֆունկցիան։ Ուղղակի լավ չի աշխատում, որտեղ ինքը by default չգիտի դու ինչ ես ուզում։ Եթե դուք ձեր toString ֆունկցիան գրեք, ինքը by default, եթե դուք փորձեք stringify անեք որևէ object, ինքը այդ object-ի toString-ը կկանչի։ Ու ինչ որ ինքը վերադասնի, դա էլ կտվի։ Դա կվերադասնի որպես իր string վարիանտը։ Մի վարքյան, պատկերացրեք այսպես։ Եթե ես անեմ dog1 plus space plus dog2։ Ստեղ անեմ մի րոպե string do։ Do-ի մեջ ինչ կա հայտնվի։ Hi. I think, in other words, it will stringify this, and again, it stringifies an object by calling its toString function. It will stringify this, again, by calling its toString function, and then obviously you concatenate by a space, so you get hi space hi. Let me demonstrate. If I do, hit save, run it. Down here, I get hi. There was a question. Yes, sir.
What if we don't have toString function in our class, so it will give us undefined?
Good question. So let's get rid of this function, and let's see what happens if you just concatenate dog1 with dog2. Wait. You get this crap. So the point is every object that you make, every object that you make actually inherits from a, remember we talked about extending classes? It actually extends from a root class called object, and it already has a function called toString, but it works like crap. It works like this. It's useless. So it exists, but it's not useful. You have to override it in order to give it a useful string. Now, a question was asked. Why is every dog named Joey and every dog is age 1? It makes sense that different dogs have different ages and different, right? Okay, so one way to do it is to pass these values into the constructor. So here I can specify something like Joey, but here I can say this is not Joey, but Bolos. And the age should be, this is 1-year-old and this is 2 years old. Now, I'm getting all these like red, error, bad warning signs. The reason for that is because I haven't actually declared a constructor here yet. So I need to do that. So let me do public dog. And notice in JavaScript we had to write the word constructor. Here the constructor is basically a function with the same name as your class. That is your constructor. Okay, it's a little difference. In JavaScript you do constructor, right? And then you have your arguments here. In Java, you write the same name as your class, and then you take the arguments here. What were my arguments? I need a name and I need an age, right? So how do I do that? Like that? Right, I need to specify the kinds of variables these are. So this is a string, and age should be an integer, right? Cool. Okay, so now I have a constructor that takes as argument a name and an age. Again, remember this. Whenever you create a new object using a class, the first thing that happens is the constructor runs. It's like your initializer. It's the thing that sort of starts things off. Okay? Okay, so now I want to store name into the dog, right? So I would do something like this dot name is name, and this dot age is age. But there's a problem here. You see, in JavaScript, you can dynamically create variables and attach them to objects. In Java, you can't. You actually have to have inside of the class a string name and an int age. And these, are these static? No. No. How did you know? Because I don't have the word static next to them. If they're not static, what does that mean?
Every object will have.
Yes. What that means is that just like any regular function that gets copied over into the object that gets created, in the same way, these variables get copied over into every object that is created. So every time I create a new dog, it's going to have the function getAge, the function getName, the function bark, a name inside, and an age inside. Նայեք, ուրեմն dog-ը class-ը, որով կարելի է ստեղծել object, այդ բառը։ Երբ որ այս պահին մենք ստեղծենք նոր object dog-ով, այդ object-ը իր մեջ կունենա այս ֆունկցիան, bark-ը, այս ֆունկցիան getName-ը եւ այս ֆունկցիան getAge-ը։ Այդ մասը բարձր չէ։ Նույնպես այդ object կունենա իր մեջ այս name attribute-ը եւ age attribute-ը։ Իրա մեջ։ Ամեն object-ը կունենա իրա name-ը ու իրա age-ը, իրա bark-ը, իրա getName-ը եւ իրա getAge-ը։ Պատկերացրեցիք։ Okay։ Սա constructor-ն է, constructor-ը ֆունկցիա է ընդհանրապես, որը ամենաառաջին ֆունկցիան է, որը աշխատում է, երբ որ object-ը նոր ստեղծվում է class-ով։ Okay։ Սինտակտիկան այսպես է, շատ պարզ։ Անունը իրա նույնն է, ինչպես որ class-ը, եւ return չունի։ Միակ տարբերությունը դա է։ JavaScript-ում մենք գրում ենք sense, հիշում եք, constructor, հետո ստանում ենք ինչ-որ argument-ներ, ու ստեղ գրում ենք ինչ ուզում ենք։ Java-ում, հաստատ constructor գրեք, գրում ենք հենց անունը class-ը։ Դա է ձեր constructor-ը։ Նույն բանն է բայց։ Ստեղ մեր constructor-ը մեր առաջին ֆունկցիան, որ կաշխատի, վերցնում է name եւ age, եւ մենք իր այդ նոր ստեղծած object-ի մեջ դնում ենք this.name name, this.age age. What is this again? Do you guys remember? Remember when I got into the... You remember this? Okay, so this is the object you are in. Okay, so every time I do a new dog, this will run. Right? So this is that new object that is getting created. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking this value that just got passed in and assigning it to this. I'm taking this value that got passed in, I'm assigning it to this, which is this. Դուք հասկանում եք, չէ՞, որ սա հղում է սրան, եւ սա հղում է սրան։ Բարձա? Yes.
Մենք JavaScript-ի մեջ variables-ը իրան ինչ-որ բան տամ, չէ initial value, բայց դա չկա initial value, ուղղակի սարքել։
So even in JavaScript, you don't actually have to have an initial. You're right. You could do something like, let's have the age default to age. So now, if you don't do this, every dog you make will be 8 years old, right? If you do, by the way, notice comments are also the same. Have you guys noticed that almost everything I'm writing is the same exact syntax as in JavaScript? This is why I started with JavaScript, because syntactically, the two are actually very similar. Okay, so now if I bring it back, now age will get overridden. JavaScript में छे. Միայն եթե constant. Ինչի? Exactly. Right. Okay, so the question was, in JavaScript, remember how we did let a is, 3? This is JavaScript now. You could have done this, and then later set a to whatever you want. Similarly, in Java, you can do, int a, and then later assign it to a value. Same idea. Okay, Hima. Now that I created this dog, I'm still going to, when I call getName, get Joey. But I don't want to get Joey, I want to get whatever this is. How do I access this variable from here? Huh? Exactly. Wait, sorry, not here. Here. And here I want to say this.h. Okay. And then let me make a toString function. Hang on, public string to string, and have it return. What should be the stringified version of this dog? You tell me. Yeah, maybe name plus age. This dot name plus, space maybe plus this dot age. Or what I could do is instead of calling name, I could do get name. This dot get age. Right? Save that. So now, if I stringify, let's get rid of all this stuff. If I just stringify dog1, let's see what I get. Joey1. You get y? Hang on, let me collapse these down. Okay, now you guys can see more. So all I did was call getName, getAge, concatenated them together, and got the name space age in my toString function. It kan det läppas. Someone tell me what a toString function is. What is a toString function? Why is it there? How is it used? Anyone? Yes?
So the toString function is a function that turns the function into string when function is called without any parameter.
Okay, wait. So you said something that turns, it's a function that turns a function into a string.
Yeah, like a stringified version of a function when it's called.
Oh, a function?
No, for the object.
Right, so it's a stringified version of the object. Good. And it's something that Java knows to call by default. If it ever has to stringify an object, it automatically calls the toString. What is the scenario in which Java would need to stringify an object? Give me an example. Huh? Yeah. What I mean is, in code, what would result in the toString function getting called? Մի հատ օրինակ տվեք, ես կոդ գրեմ, որի արդյունքում toString-ը կկանչվի. String. No. Ես ուզում եմ dog1-ի toString-ը կանչվի. Առանց իմ dog1 դա sense-ը կարող եմ իհարկե, չէ՞։ Այդ բարձր։ Exactly. If you do this, .out.println dog1, this is an example of something that would underneath automatically stringify dog1. Right? In order to then put it on the console. Here's another example. Suppose I do string a is dog1 plus is cool. This would have to turn into a string to then get concatenated with the string, right? Okay? Որպեսի այս երկուսը կպնեն իրար, սա պետք է վերածվի տեքստին, որպեսի այդ տեքստը կպնի այս տեքստին եւ ստեղծի այդ նոր տեքստը։ Ճիշտ է։ Ոնց է դա վերածվում տեքստը։ Իրա two string-ն է կանչվում։ Այդքան բան։ Իրա two string-ն է կանչվում, գալիս է հետ այդ string-ը, եւ այդ string-ը կպնում է այս string-ին եւ ստանում ենք այդ նոր string-ը։ Հաջող։ Այո։ Exactly. Right. So if I just wanted the name, I could do it two ways. I could either do .get name. Now I would get Joey is cool, right? Or I could just change the stringify function, the toString function, to simply return get name. And now I will get Joey is cool. Both will result in the same thing. Yes, correct. Questions? Yes, sir.
If we have, for example, a double
Yeah.
variable which has a value 2.5,
Yes.
and if we write int and in the parentheses
Yeah, when you cast it, yes.
it will bring it will give us 2, right?
If you, right, so, okay, so he's talking about something a little bit different. He's saying, so if you have a double, D, which is, 4.5, and then you will have an int, A, which you assign to D. Obviously, you cannot do this. Why can't you do this? Because A is an integer and D is a double, and you can't put a double into an int. That doesn't make any sense, right? But what you can do is you can cast, you can translate, you can convert the type. The way you do that is by doing this. We talked about this briefly last time. Okay? Miropa? Oh, duplicate local Miropa.
I'll see.
Did I use A before? Oh, I used A here. Sorry, that's why. Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay. This you can do. Right? So what this is saying is turn the decimal into an integer. And what do you think would happen if you had 4.5 and you turned it into an integer? 4. Not 5. It doesn't round. It simply takes the integer part of it and forgets about the rest. Yes?
So the only equivalent way to do this for a string would be to use string.
To do what as a string?
Basically make what you have a string. You have to use, the only way is to use toString.
So the easiest way I found to quickly turn any primitive into a string is concatenated with a string. So you can literally do this. String D is C plus empty string. So what this will do is turn this into a string in order to concatenate with an empty string, and then what you get is a string. It's a quick, simple way to turn something into a string. There are other ways to do this, by the way, but this is the easiest way. Okay. Getting back to this part. Yes? Why do we have functions? Okay, so in JavaScript, you understand why we have functions, right? No, I know. In JavaScript, you understand why we have functions. It's obvious, right? It's a way of encapsulating logic that you can use again and again, right? Okay. So Java is very different from JavaScript in the following way. Java requires everything to be in a class. Okay? Did you notice that every file I made had a class inside? I never wrote any Java that was not inside of a class. Right? So Java forces you to do everything with a class. And the idea behind this is as follows. The idea behind object-oriented programming, this notion of programming with classes and objects, is as follows. That you couple data and functions together in your application. So if you think about it, your application is basically a whole bunch of data and then functions that manipulate that data. At its core, that's what Facebook is. What is Facebook, right? It's all the data about you, your friends, your comments, your messages, your pictures. It's all that data. plus functions to draw that data on the screen, the functions to create a new comment, the functions to act on that data, to manipulate that data, right? So Facebook is nothing more than a bunch of data and a bunch of functions that act on that data, correct? At its core. So what Java is saying is this, okay, if that's the case, let's model Facebook as classes. Every comment is a class. Every user is a class. So you have a class comment, which you use to create comments. You have user, which you use to create users. You have location, you use to create event. You create events. Message, every time you write a message, it does new message and creates a new message object. So you have all this data that contains inside of it user information, comment information, right? So data. Then you have functions that act on that data, right? You want to edit a comment. You want to remove a comment from an existing object. You want to call these various functions that are attached to these objects that now have all this data. So remember, you have in any class, you use the class to create an object. That object will have inside of it data, information. In this case, what is the data we have about a dog? Name and age, good. And then you have functions that allow you to act on that data. You can stringify that data. You can get access to that data. You can write to that data. Now, if your question was, why have a getAge if you can simply do this, dog.age? Right? Why have this function getAge? Isn't that redundant? Why have that? Sorry, dog1.getAge. This is exactly equal to dog1.age right now. If I turn this into a boolean, right, so, glad you caught that. There is another syntactic difference between JavaScript and Java. In JavaScript, when we wanted to compare two things, we were using triple equals, right? In Java, it's double. One small difference. On havasar, good question. Voch havasar, ayspes. Voch te ayspes. JavaScriptum sensa. Java and sensa. Sorry, we don't have sense. Okay? Good. So, what would this return, in your opinion? True, right? Because dog1 has 1 passed to its age. There it is, which is assigned to this.age. Therefore, age turns from 8 into 1. And then I can either get it directly or I can do getAge through this function here. Now, you asked a good question, which is, well, why have both of them? Here's what you can do. Watch this. Oops, sorry, 1 second. Private space. Now we come here. Hang on. Listen here, it does. Aha, just a principi public static ignite glassy mention. Okay, love it, hit a glass. What a orange glass at this, okay, this we'll get to later. Okay, forget what I said, I'll tell you later. I don't want to confuse you now. Okay, let's move on. So far we're doing pretty well, I think. Okay, so this we covered last time, right? So if you want to make a string, you say string, the name of the variable, and then the string. If you want to make a double, you say double, name of the variable, then the double. You want to make a character, name of the thing, and the character. Notice characters are single quotes, and you have to have one character inside. And you also have Boolean, right? These are sort of there are more primitive types, actually, most of them numbers. But you don't have to know that for this class. You can memorize them later in next class. That's easy. Does anyone understand what this code says? Everyone in this class knows what this is saying. The syntax for if is exactly the same except for one minor difference, which is this. For the Boolean logic, I mean. Which is that we use double equals instead of triple equals. as discussed just now. Okay?
Also the system out print.
Yeah, right. And the system, instead of console.log, we do system.println, right? But beyond that, and of course every type is declared when you're creating the variable. Outside of that, you know exactly what's happening. Now, you guys tell me which is going to print.
A is not equal to C.
İçi hamara, որպեսզի այս արդյունքը վերցնելիս ենք մեջ։ Սա ինչ է տալիս։ Այս true, ուրեմն BB-ն դառնում է true։ Այդ նույնն է ինչպես որ գրես սա։ Օգտագործում եք, բայց ինչ։ Դե ասեք։
They are different.
They are different. Oh, okay, then you get false. I'm not even looking. So you tell me what this is going to give me.
A is not equal to C.
Աշխատացնեմ, տեսնենք։ They are different. Opa. Եկեք տեսնենք ինչի։ A-ը ինչ է։ 3 հավասար է, B-ն ինչ է։ 3. 3-ը հավասար է 3-ի։ So therefore B is true. BB is true. Let's go through the first one. A is equal to B. What is A again? 3. What is B again? 3. So is this true? True. And A is equal to C. What is A?
False. It's 3 equals to 5.
3. What is C? 5. This is false. What is true and false? And anything else? It's already false, right? You don't even have to look at this. If and has false on either side, it's false. But if you're curious, okay, well BB was true, now we flipped it, it became false, so this is false. False and false is, of course, false. Therefore, this expression is false. Right? Done. So it's obviously not here. What is A? A is 3, not equal to C, which is 5. Is this true?
Yes.
True. Therefore, we get they are different. Yes, sir.
Առաջի condition-ը որ false-ը է, այդ դրանից հետո էլ ինքնոնց է else-if մտնում։
Բայց հենց դրա համար է մտնում else-if։
Առաջի condition-ը պետք է ճիշտ չլներ, որ ինքը մի հատ էլ else-if-ը ստուգեր։
Չէ։
Սխալ է։
Առաջ
Ջան, նայ։
սխալ է, execute չարեց։
Ինչ եթե ճիշտ, եթե true լիներ սա, չէ՞, ինքը կմտներ ու կաշխատացներ իր մարմինը, չէ՞։ Եթե true լիներ։ Եթե false չի, else if, այսինքն այլ վարիանտում մենք ստուգում ենք s condition։ Եթե s true է, s եք աշխատացնում, եթե s false է, աշխատացնում ենք այլ condition։ Հասկացա՞ր, չէ՞։ Հաստատ հասկացա՞ր։ Clear? Guys, this is the same. This is JavaScript. It's exactly the same. The only difference again is just the not equal and the equal. You just use one, for not it's not equal, and for equal it's equal. That's it. Everything else is the same. And is the same, or is the same, not is the same. All the other stuff you learned, exactly the same. Cool? Try again? Good. Okay, so you guys just learned all the conditionals in JavaScript, in Java in like 2 minutes. Let's keep going. Save. Next.
Genius.
Arrays. What is an array? You tell me what an array is.
A list.
It's a list. Good. It's a list of values. Now, in JavaScript, we could do something like this, right? To create an array, we would just do like, let A be, something like this. And then we could add to A as much as we wanted, right? And we could add to it by doing something like A.length is, we could do A index of anything we want and set that to any value we want, right? In Java, it doesn't work that way. In Java, if you want a list, no problem. But you have to know how long it's going to be, and you have to know the kinds of things you're going to put in that list. Now, why do you think that is? Why does Java care how many values you're going to have and the kinds of values that are going to exist inside? Yeah, to allocate memory. Exactly. In other words, if it knows that you're going to put an integer, well, an integer takes up a certain amount of memory, right? You need a certain number of bits to represent an integer number, okay? So if you say, I want a list of 5 integers, it has to make that many consecutive pieces in memory. That it has to say, this memory is going to be used for this array. And then whenever you write, it will write to that location. Okay. So in this case, what I'm saying is, I'm saying int. Now, if I just did this, what does this mean?
Integer.
Right, this means R is a variable that holds an integer. But what we want is a list. It's an array, right? So what we do is by adding this thing in front of it, we're saying an array of integers. This is an integer. This is an array of integers. Cool? This is how you declare a variable that can hold a list of integers. Question: how do I create an array that holds a list of characters? And then the name. Good. So now, whatever is a variable that is expecting to hold inside a list of characters. Cool? Okay.
But in this case, we don't pass the length of the
We didn't, in this case, all I've done is create the variable. I didn't actually make the array. Yeah? Der Rich Nu invest in for sense. Okay, so let's go back here. Okay, then in order to create an array, remember in JavaScript to make an array we just did this, right? In Java you have to do a bit more. You have to do new, the kind of thing you want to put into the array, and then the length of the array. Just know the syntax. Just memorize it. Yes?
Can I put an integer and a string into the array?
No. Why? Because, for example, here, I'm saying this is an array of integers, right? If I decided to do give me an index that is valid. 0, okay. If I decide to put in this some string, I get this error which says, cannot be resolved to, wait, what? Oh, sorry. Okay, good. I get this error which says, type mismatch, cannot convert a string into an int. Because it can only hold integers, right? Okay, cool. So we can't do that. We have a dot length attached to it, just like in JavaScript. Cioè, mega string. Nej, ուրիշ բան, եթե դու այդ string-ը վերածես integer-ի, նոր այդ integer-ը գցես մեջը, no problem. Հա, այդ հետո կասեմ, հա։ Okay, so, well, ոչ բոլոր, մենակ են նրանք, որի մեջ կան tip, բայց հետո կասեմ ես, բայց հատուկ ձև կա։ Okay, so, an array has a dot length attached to it. If I create an array with 5 inside, what do you think the length is? 5. Good. What are the indexes that are available to me? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? If I want, so here I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If I did this, this will give me an error if I run it. Let's run it and see what the error is. Exception in thread, array index out of bounds. So array, we get what an array is. Index, we understand what index is, right? Out of bounds. It means you went outside of the limits, out of bounds. It means I attempted to reference an index that does not exist. This is another fundamental difference between Java and JavaScript. In Java, you can just keep adding indexes, no problem. In Java, you decide what the length of the array is at the beginning, and you can only now use it in that length. You can't go outside of that length. So if I made an array of length 5, the only indexes that I can write to and read from are 0 through 4. If I go beyond that, I'm now outside of that bounds, and I get the error. Again, remember, going back to memory allocation, when I say this, what this means is Java, go to memory, specify like how much memory you need to specify an integer, do that 5 times, and keep this memory. And when I write, copy that into memory. If I try to write somewhere outside of that bounds, it's not allowed to because this is where it's supposed to write. You can't write outside of this limit. By the way, in memory is also the reason why you have to specify the type of thing. Because the amount of memory you need to represent a single character is different from the amount of memory that you might need to represent a boolean, which might be different from the amount of memory you need to represent an integer. Cool? Hayır nasıl? Petka, hayır nasıl? Raise your hand if you need Armenian. All right, good. Okay, so the rest of the syntax is very similar to JavaScript. You just say the name of the array, you open up the thing, you specify the index you want, and then you can read from it or write to it. Yeah, that's it. Any questions? Yes? So yeah, I think the syntax for that is Mina, I guess. My memory serves me well now. Okay, so if you just wanted to create the values initially, and introduce you could do it like this. So this is saying create an array that has inside of it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, if you want, but again, you don't have to remember this. Just by sense comes. So this will create an array of what length? Length interest array. Exactly. Yes, Garwem sense on the Mima are to Որտեվ 5-րդ index չկա, exactly. Որտեվ սա ստեղծում է array, որի մեջ կա 5 անդամ, ես չեմ կարող 5-րդ index օգտագործեմ, քանի որ 0-ից ենք սկսում։ Նույնպես չեմ կարող 9-րդ անդամից գրեմ կամ կարդամ կամ 8-րդից եւ այլն։ Հասկացաք, չէ՞։ Սահման է տրված։ Всё, դա տարբերություն։ Yeah. Okay, so one more important point. In JavaScript, the way we specified like empty values is by this thing undefined. Remember that? In Java, it's null. Null. So what you could do, you actually need to specify something. Because remember, it's an array of integers. You have to have an integer. So, do ասում ես ոնց կարելի է դադար թողել, չէ՞։ Ասում եմ դադար մի թող, 0 դիր, ինչ որ մի բան դիր, բայց դադար չես կարող թողել, որտեղ պետք է integer լինի։ Հա, կարող ես, հետո կարող ես երկու index ասեն երրորդը, փոխես դարձնես 838, no problem։ Բայց չես կարող սենց անես։ Որովհետև ինքը integer-ներ է մենակ բան։ Բաժա, չէ՞, հաջան։
What if we want to add the objects into the array?
Good question. Then you need an array of objects, which I will talk about.
And one more thing.
Yes.
What if we are creating the elements of the arrays by the for loop, and we don't know how much time this will lose. So the times the for loop will loop gives the user. So we don't know how much time it
then you can't use an array. You have to use a data structure, which is, by the way, a class you'll be taking called data structures. It's called a linked list. It's basically you have an object that references the next object, and then that references the next object. That's called a linked list. Anyway, հետո կսովորեք այս։ Հաջող։
Ուրեմն մենք array երկարացնենք։
Չէ։ Կարող ես ստեղծես նոր array, որի մեջ դնես հին array-ը բլու շարունակես։ Բայց array-ը հետ ստեղծեցիր, վсё, այդ չես կարող իրան չափ փոխես։
Զեկան JavaScript-ն array.length-ով ավելացնենք։
Չէ։ Որովհետև dot length-ը արդեն index out-ը։ Other questions or concerns about arrays? So, someone tell me some differences between JavaScript arrays and Java arrays. I'm curious. Yes? One difference. Right, so in Java, when you create an array, you specify the length of the array, and that is fixed. It's bound. Whereas in JavaScript, the array can just grow and grow and grow. You can just keep adding to the index, right? No problem. Another.
Specify the variables like integers, strings.
Right, you have to specify the kinds of data, the types, that can go into that array. Yes?
So it's not possible to create an array with characters and integers, right?
No.
Then
Why?
Can I ask you something?
Yes, sir.
How do we create arrays of arrays?
Good question. Very good question. So, if I recall, it's something like this, and then in here you do, what's the syntax? There is a way. Wait, I don't code in JavaScript or Java all day.
We do like 5 and then we use one more bracket. 5 and then one more bracket.
Science? Hingi?
Yeah, it's multidimensional and there was an array of arrays where we can specify like the second one. It will reject the array.
Մի րոպե, R-ի մեջ հիմա դնում, եթե դնում ենք 0 index-ում հիմա դնենք new int science. Hing. Հետո R 0-ի մեջ.
But when we do this way, like when we specify the second thing, like the arrays are initialized automatically.
So I don't actually need to do this.
But if we don't specify the
I sense. Okay, I get it. Yes. Got it. Okay, look. So what this is saying is this. This is an integer array, which contains inside of it integer arrays. So, and then this is saying create an array of 5 things, where each thing is an array of 5 things. You could change it. You could say, now this means the second level of arrays is 10. So yes, you can do it. It's just the syntax is a bit different. Good, very good question. You guys are awesome. Other questions or concerns? Yes, sir.
Like I have a question. Like if we create an object,
Yeah.
and when we call it to string, it returns the address of the reference, like the pointer,
Right.
and the class, right? So isn't there something similar in JavaScript? Like how can I get the reference address?
You
row
can't.
address? No way.
Not that I know of. I mean, there might be some like low-level function you can call.
The reason why I'm asking is that like in the map in JavaScript, it is using the reference. Like the two objects, whether they have the same content or not, they are considered different for map hashing.
Sure.
So like I'm struggling to understand like if there is no reference, how they are using the hash.
Well, first of all, that happens at a low level, so they might have access to a function that you don't. But wait, but there might be a function that you call with that value, and then it gives you it's not just a hash, but also the location. I just don't know what that is. I never use it. But there might be. Just Google it, Other questions? Yes? Okay, scoping it works basically exactly the same as in JavaScript. In other words, you first start with your local block, and then you go up from there, and you keep going up. It's exactly the same as what we've studied in JavaScript. Yeah, okay, function. I mean, so, okay, no, you can't just make, in the new Java, I think you can make like just a function without a class, I think. I don't know how to do that. That's a new like feature that they added. But it's in general. So for example, if you make an if statement, right? If whatever, true, let's say, and And then in here you do int a is whatever, right? And then in here you have int a is whatever. But it's blocks. Duplicate local variable. Okay, you actually don't have this problem in Java apparently because you can't nest functions that way. Tell you what, find me an example and I'll tell you how it works. Okay? Česká. There's new, like really weird syntax in the new stuff that allows you to make functions, I think.
Interfaces are?
Interface solution. But interface is basically
functions with interfaces.
that, yes, that. Բայց այդ լրի ուրիշ կաշա է ու նոր է դուս եկել, that's why ես ինչ գիտեմ, okay, so you guys get arrays, right? Arrays are clear to you, sort of? Okay, good. Now, for loops, while loops. Notice anything different here? It's exactly what you already know, except you have to declare int instead in front of the variable. That's it, instead of just let. Everything else is the same. You specify the variable, you specify the constraint, and you specify how you're going to change it. Plus equals also works. I equals I plus 1 will also work. Everything you know is going to work here. Okay? So, raise your hand if you don't know how to write for loops in Java now. Congratulations. A while loop. Have a look. Do you see anything different or new? Other than the fact that you need an int here? Everything else is the same, right? Congratulations, you know how to do while loop in Java. Next, okay. So this is a loop we have not talked about. Listen. This is a loop that I haven't taught you. Some of you may know. There's a loop called do while. It works exactly like while, except for one difference. It will run the body first, and then check the while, and then run the body. Check the while, run the body. Check the while, right? With while, here's how it works. If this is true, it runs this. Then again, if this is true, run this. If this is true, run this, right? In do while, it will run this. If this is true, run it again. If it's true, run it again. Askasa? Aydın Chasam? Okay. So now you know 3 different loops. For loop, while loop, and do while loop. Yes? By the way, JavaScript also has do while loop, and the syntax is exactly the same. Jokes? Aydın to know. John, I love it. Okay, cool. I'm not going to teach you this. You don't need this. Forget it. Don't even look at that one. Okay, so you know the rest. Very good. Congratulations. So you know loops. Oh, I told you I'd be done after loops. Any German, I'll say then next time we'll get into, well, you know functions, more or less. Okay, whatever. Classes, and then inheritance. Hey guys, we're almost done. This is cool. And sad, but also cool. Okay, does anyone have any questions regarding all the fun Java stuff we learned today? Let's review very quickly. Okay. We learned that in Java you have classes, and classes can be used to construct objects. Fine. We learned that we have static functions and we have non-static functions, right? Static functions are the functions that are attached to the class. Non-static are the ones that are added to the object once it is created. Fine.